Hi, this is Eternal King here, bringing you another LOR video today. So, as part of my series of, making decks as durable as humanly possible, I noticed that the Anivia Elemental deck was really struggling. I was struggling to play it. People I saw online were struggling to play it. The win rate for the deck, this is Sunny's deck, was sub 50%. Just everything about this deck was objectively not doing well because it wasn't built in a durable fashion. So I kind of wanted to go back to the list and see if I could fix it to make it as genuinely competitive as possible. Previously, if you don't know, I had made Birds, which was the meme deck at the time. This is, the best version of Birds. My version of Birds is actually quite strong. I've only just been staying away from it because Demacia is such a popular region, but I have played countless games of Birds and done exceptionally well with it. So that was one kind of meme deck I wanted to make more durable and powerful. And take it from meme territory to sort of good territory. So the next project was Anivia. I really wanted Anivia Elemental ramp to kind of be a valid deck. So there are a couple of really substantial changes that I made that are exceptionally important. So the first one is we take out the 7 mana card. So again, Sunny likes his big kind of units with play effects. Wizened Helmsman, it's a little pie in the sky. So the whole point of Wizened Helmsman is that you play Deluge, then you play Wizened Helmsman, and then you get the free Deluges again. That's basically how it goes. So, ideally you're high rolling the Helmsman to get useful things. God forbid though you just pull like a Winter's Touch or there's so many elemental cards that you have to high roll with the Wizened Helmsman to get the Deluge and otherwise it's not really doing anything for you. Not at all really. So that's my first cut. Much better replacement for Wizened Helmsman, it's not complicated, it is Flamecaller. So Flamecaller says that when you play an elemental skill, Forge Me. So the idea is that you play Flamecaller as a non-committal play. It's the only real non-committal play in this deck. You just play it out there, and then while your opponent develops into it, then you're free to spam Fracture, Ice Shards, and Avalanches, which you're going to be doing in this deck anyway. That's the whole point of the deck. So at least when you have Flamecaller Caprine, it allows you to make a proactive play if your opponent is using pass priority and leveraging that against you in an aggro shell and not committing to the board. Flamecaller Caprine is just a safe 4-mana card that you can just play and then ideally start to commit some of your board wipes after the opponent starts to commit more, which makes this deck amazing. I mean, it makes this card amazing. Like, it's a no-brainer. Like, this deck doesn't really do anything without Flamecaller. You need the sustain. You need to have an actual follower to play that basically won't die. So every time you play Fracture, every time you spam Ice Shard, Flamecaller Caprine is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Obviously, Winter's Touch and Wild Mysticism are your ramp cards in this shell. The other staple kind of ramp cards that you use in the shell, you don't really use any more than that because you are using Deluge, right? So typically what you would run is a Winter's Touch, Wild Mysticism, and then Catalyst. Deluge is taking place of Catalyst in this deck, so you can't run that much ramp. So Deluge says that for the rest of the game, all your elemental skills deal 1+ damage. So a very important card in this deck to play at least once to increase the damage of your Fracture. So now Fracture turns into Avalanche. Ice Shard is Fastalanche, and the combination of two might allow you to burn out opponents in certain situations with the damage increase. Flamecaller providing that sustain, and then the other piece is Bella's Breath. So if you don't know what this card does, it says Forge an ally, then deal 1 to all units, then do it again. So this also gets buffed by Deluge. So this is the other card. This is the other part of the equation. Is you run both. You run Flamecaller and you run Bella's Breath. This is like old school Ornn tech that people have forgotten about. We're putting it in this deck because it fits perfectly, right? So the whole idea being that after you play the Deluge, you jam Bella's Breath onto the Flamecaller, and now you're double avalanching the opponent's board. Double avalanches are basically equivalent value of Volley Spell. So you're basically getting a Stormbringer in the form of Bella's Breath. And the nice thing about Bella's Breath is that because it forges the ally, and it means that it's not going to die. So if you Bella's Breath a Chakram Dancer, she's not going to die. if you Bellows Breath the Flame Caller, it's not going to die. Chakram is obviously the staple card in this deck, which turns all your elemental skills into drain effects. So again, very, very important card. Anivia, very, very important card because its skill effect counts as drain. Volibear because its skill effect counts as drain. Usually you run one Wings of the Cryo Phoenix. And then you have Clash of Giants. So really, again, my idea of making decks sustainable is to kind of look at the meme elements that aren't working for me. Things like Wizened Helmsman being like a very, very slow standard card. Another card I see people run in ramp shells all the time, which just like is not up to snuff, is something like Cloud Drake. I think Cloud Drake is grossly overrated. I understand that it is basically a mobilize on a body, which makes it very good, and it's a big body. And then if you have Eddie in your deck, you can also have a random keyword like Deathless or Challenger. Like, I get that it's, you know, ramp and a tempo 6 drop, and like obviously Cloud Drake is much better than Wizened Helmsman, but it doesn't change the fact that like people put way too much stock in these sorts of tempo 6 drops. This isn't standard. You have to build your deck in a comprehensive fashion. So at the end of the day, instead of the Wizened Helmsman, we want Bellows Breath on the Flamecaller Caprine to not instantly have our Nexus explode in a lot of situations. So I was playing into Thresh Nasus. I think Nasus was probably the worst matchup imaginable for this deck. I can't imagine a single matchup that would be worse than Nasus for this deck because, again, it's all burn. But with these changes that I've made, the Flamecaller Caprine, essentially giving us the sustain to deal with, basically deal with Nasus, right? We were actually able to beat, you know, the worst game imaginable. Into aggro, you should be fine, right? You should be fine. Fracture, Ice Shard, Avalanche, your deck's all AoE effects. Flamecaller will provide the blocking that you need. Bellows Breath onto either the Flamecaller or the Chakram Dancer, right? Chakram Dancer turning all your spells into heals. Then Anivia, so this should be fine into aggro. Mid-range, you know, might be a little more dependent on hitting your deluges and things like that, but overall, this feels much, much better than what Sunny was running, and it really is just like small tweaks, right? Instead of running the Spawn 1 card, we'd run Fracture. It's a more impactful card. It will also help potentially allow us to burn out opponents in certain situations. It's just like, again, redundancy on the Ice Shard. So we're running the Fracture all the time. We're running, you know, again, Clash of Giants is you know, he was right about that. I'll give him that I thought Clash of Giants was terrible, but Clash of Giants is actually very, very good in this deck. It's very powerful. But yeah, so again, this short deck today, just again taking old lists that people have kind of forgotten about and building them to be as sustainable and durable as humanly possible. You can take memes and you can make them good just by running, you know, good mid-rangey type cards in the shell, taking out the memes, and then comboing, you know, that card with the you know, the obvious inclusion of Bellows Breath. There's just too much synergy to pass up there. Flamecaller Caprine, triple Bellows Breath is just so synergistic. It lets the deck do something else other than just play Chakram Dancer and then pray. Because again, the big problem with this deck is that sometimes you just wouldn't get the Chakram Dancer, and then the deck had nothing else it could do until it hit mana 7, which is way too late. Like, again, there's nothing about this deck that requires a high mana curve. It's not like you're running the 2 mana card that synergizes with a high mana curve. Faces of the Old One, right? It's not like you're running Faces of the Old One. You're not running any sort of go big style ramp effects in the shell. So why are we running a higher mana curve than we need to just make our deck worse? Just so we can play potentially a free Deluge? On mana 7? Ugh. It's not very good. Not by Eternal standards. We can do better. Alright, this is Eternal King, signing out.